from April 10th. I looked through it. I didn't see any issues. I don't know if anyone else did. I thought that Mary did a nice job of just kind of summarizing what the conversation was. If anyone had any concerns, I'm happy to hear them. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as they are.
Make
Yeah.
a motion to approve April 10th minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you, Jay. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Okay, Michael Falsetti.
I was absent.
Oh, okay, so you're gonna abstain? Sounds good. I know, you're never absent. That was like the most bizarre thing ever. I called you because I was like, how is it possible? Mike's not here. Mike's always here. You are the most consistent, like lovely public servant ever. All right, Jay Ferreira.
Yes.
All right, Christopher Gothier
Yes.
and Maribel Ortiz.
I was also absent.
And Meg McGrath-Smith, yes. Okay. All right, so second agenda item on the agenda is just an update on the city council response to the FY24 CPAC recommendations. So I presented at finance and then again at council, which was fun because I was in Scotland. So it was midnight Scotland time, and I'm like in the lobby of the hotel, like on Zoom, like participating in the city council meeting, which is one of the more bizarre elements of having the open meeting law allow for Zoom. But I was able to participate, which was good because the wind development project was particularly hard won. It wouldn't have passed without my vote, without me being there, and I knew that. It's really interesting how I feel like the housing has been politicized. And so there were a lot of folks that were sort of speaking in favor for Library Commons too, but against wind development. And they were bringing up points like the cost of the wind development project per unit and compare, saying that that's why they were voting against it. When Library Commons too, it's like just to turn these old mill buildings into, or old, stock into something new and up to code is very expensive, right? And we're also not paying the dime. Right, that we are like CPA, the community, whether it was through ARPA or through the mayor's office, like the funding they put forward for these housing projects was like a penny, right, in the jar for like how much these projects cost. It was all private money and also state and also federal, right? All this other money was just pouring into the city if we could just launch them, or if we could just come in with that last penny on the dollar. But somehow it was this like, well, it's so expensive, we shouldn't afford it, or we shouldn't be supporting it, as if it's like, I don't know what the word is, but like almost as if it's so expensive, it's irresponsible to support the investment. When like we know, we've all been in housing for years now, like the creation of housing is expensive. Like this is what we've learned through this process. Like I don't like that either, but it is a reality in a city like ours, which is trying to retrofit all these old like effective brown sites is what we're dealing with here. I don't know. It is what it is. And I'm glad that it all passed and all of the recommendations were passed, but it was not easy. And it did come down to the wire on wind development. It was a 7-6 vote. Thankfully, though, we're not considered a financial transfer. This is just an up-down vote. It's a budget that they're approving, and so it's only a majority, which is the thing that sort of saved us because it's not requiring a supermajority. It only requires a majority for them to recommend our projects. Jay, what's your thoughts?
Well, I just would say also just adding in that the FAR alpaca building sat there abandoned for like 50 years. So like I think that's an important point, is that the CPA is kind of getting or participating and getting the ball rolling on these massive projects that have been sitting there for years and years and years. And I mean, it really is turning what is a liability in many ways for the city into something that's really gonna just be another gem down there for us that we can continue to build upon. And I just think that's what was happening before versus what's happening now is an important distinction in this entire conversation as well. And I just wanted to throw that in there in this debate. Thank you.
Yeah, well, not to mention it can now go back on the tax rolls. Like it paid no taxes since it was vacant for 50 years. I mean, just to put it back in use is good because it prevents blight and prevents kind of the misuse that occurs with underuse. But also it goes back on the tax rolls. So for whatever reason, housing has become politicized. I think one of the main reasons why it was so easy to be sort of in support of Library Commons 2 this time around, and this is maybe cynical, it's just that many of them had already voted for it once. They couldn't be against it now. Whereas if this project was coming forward for the first time now, it might have had the same issues. So I think we just have to keep moving forward. But the committee is doing good work, right? And I feel the same way about the next agenda item, right? So the next agenda item is the ballot question update. So, I don't even know, maybe it was 6 weeks ago, the city council went through the process and it failed, and then it got dredged back up. So a new petition was started and 152 were collected for one side, and it was 120 for the other. And like, clearly there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, I don't love taxes. And I have a bunch of people who are like, I totally see the purpose of the investment. We had the hearing last night, and the number of city councilors who had voted initially to not put it on the ballot flipped their votes and voted to put it on the ballot. So it'll go on the ballot in November. And I think we just have to believe in the work of the committee. We've done our due diligence every time. We have a clear process. We score projects. We are looking to cross every T and dot every I. We go through and we look at the merits of the project. And I fully believe that we have supported projects that have had a public good that has occurred as a result. So I think we just have to be confident in that, so it's going to go on the ballot. Fine. I'm happy to share with people the good projects that the committee has done. And the vast majority of people that I speak to, they get it. They want the community to be invested in. They understand this is a great fund because it has a state match, but also because it is only for capital improvement. With other taxes, it's really hard to know, where does it all go? And it can feel very hard to support, like, gosh, I'm working so hard and things are hard and you're taking my hard-earned money. Where does it all go? I don't feel like it's getting better. CPA is very clear. It's a pot of money we make. We fund very specific projects, and it's all capital improvement. You can physically see what the money went to. So I think that we just have to be willing to share with the community our work as we're moving forward to November. I hope that it passes and shows that there's a lot of CPA support. And I think if it does, it just goes away, right? I think if it had not made its way to the ballot, it would have come up again in 2 years, and then another 2 years. It would have just kept getting dragged up. So the fact that it's on the ballot now, okay, fine. We'll do the work to share the good work of the committee. And I have to have faith that most people are rational and can see the good that the fund is doing. Mike, did you have your hand up? Yeah, go ahead, and then Hilly.
Madam Chairman, do you have the ballot in front of you, the proposed ballot near you?
I could pull it up.
You've read it. What is your opinion about about its wording?
I mean, I've already gotten a couple emails about it, so I'll definitely follow up, because I had initially reached out to Stuart Staggenar when this whole process started, and I was like, well, I actually think it's back. Here's the proposed ballot language. And he had responded along with the Department of Revenue and the Secretary of State's guidance around, like, here's the process to follow. Don't follow that process you're currently following. Do this instead. And effectively, I think we followed that process somewhat. We followed the guidance that was in the city solicitor's opinion, which did not fully align with the guidance from the state CPA coalition. So where that goes, I don't know.
Have you read the wording on the actual ballot question itself? I'm sure you have. You have.
We had to vote on it. Yeah.
How did you find it? Did you find it clear or confusing?
I don't love it because I think it's confusing, and the piece that I was the sole vote that voted no against not only. So most folks voted no. If they voted no personally, they voted no. But then when it came to the ballot, they were like, well, if it's going to go on the ballot, yes, I'll approve this language as it is. I voted no because I had actually brought to finance different language that also suggested that we put in a table that said, like, this will impact your taxes. If you have this value of home, it will impact it this much. And it had two representative samples, one that was the average and one that was much higher, to show people, like, if you know, so I'll pull that up because it didn't, I think honestly, the room was so exhausted from the conversation. The hearing itself had been almost 2 hours long. And I think people at that point were just like, let's move it forward, right? But the original language that I had really wanted to see was a representative sample so that people could understand what we're really talking about here. Let me show that.
Who composed the ballot question, Madam
The
Chairman?
city solicitor did. The city solicitor's office did. So like, this is an example of like what I was hoping was going to end up on the ballot was at least a chart that would explain to people, if you make $246,000, which is the average value currently, your payment at 1.5% is $41.52. At 1%, you would pay $27.68. And the tax impact of the yes vote, you would pay $13.84 less in taxes. Let's say you make almost double that, right? Like your house is valued almost double that at 472. Your tax payment is 104.68. You're at 1% would be 69.79, which means you would save $34. So I wanted that to go on to make it clear to people. Like, if you're saying this is about tax relief, it's not significant tax relief, right? And you're crippling the fund. I was not a fan of the Mass Republican article, Mass Live article that came out yesterday, where it quoted a city councilor saying that it would not have a significant impact on the fund. It would take a third of the funding away. It would have a huge impact on the fund. It would make it really hard to fund all three categories every cycle. You'd have to pick and choose, like, what one or two categories will we fund this time? It will become really difficult, right, to kind of use the money like we've been able to use it for the purpose of the investment in the community. Maribel, your hand's up, and then is this about this? And then we'll go to Helene.
Yeah, it's just about this. I think if we have a way to like show the community examples like this, and maybe have people that they are, like that they benefit from the CPA, maybe people understand, and maybe they have a better more clear when they go and vote for this for the CPA the reduction.
Yeah,
that they're
and
like,
we have to make our
investing.
case to the people, and also the people who are saying like it's tax relief. People need tax relief. Well, so the HUD guidance is really interesting. So if you are a senior, which they actually, the CPA legislation reads senior really generously. So they say a senior is 60 and up. And if you're 60 and up and you're like a single household, you can make almost like $70,000 a year. And you could get CPA forgiveness if you want it, right? You go down to the tax collector, you fill out your 4-page form, they will give you your $40 back, right? But most people are like, oh, it's $40? Well, it's not worth me putting in the time to fill out 4 pages. That's fine. The number of people who applied or asked for the tax exemption through this form this year was 0. No people do, right? The first year, 2 people did, apparently. I asked the tax collector, and she was like, after that, they were like, meh, yeah, like CPA is doing fine things. I don't need to fill this out every year to get $40 back. It's fine. All right, Helene, and then Amy. Hold on, Helene, are you muted? I can't hear you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because you went full screen, it's like messed up mine. Anyway, yeah, so that's disappointing. I mean, it really feels like frustrating for a lot of reasons. I think mostly just it's really wasteful to continually be dealing with this and talking about it when it is such a small amount and it goes to very concrete things. I guess, one idea or proposal is to really come up with events from now until November that highlight, what the money is, where it's gone to, and provide information about what CPA is. And so, we had a great event in the Glautech. And so maybe in October.
And Miracle League.
Sorry, what?
And Miracle League.
And Miracle League, we had a great, also revisit Miracle League, I think. But, I'm thinking of these like outside places, but, like have a foliage walk in the fall and invite people out and give information, and Miracle League have like ice cream part. I don't know, just things that are like really just so concrete activities for families to come out to, and really just to like have that conversation about, this is the most transparent money coming into the city. I mean, it really also, we pay some people, anyway, we pay people in the city a lot of money, like on the police force, etc. Like that is the entire amount we've more or less like spend on housing. I mean, it's just, there is an issue around priorities, and this is money where every dime is just so well spent and goes directly to the community and and we literally, in our rubric, the most important one for me is how many, does this impact the whole community? And that is such an important part. And that is how we make the decisions. And so, I don't know of other parts of the city where counselors like have their rubric about how they're voting on everything. I don't know what that is, So, just
only all the committees were run by teachers.
Right. But in terms of like good government and investment of public funds in a responsible, transparent way, this is the apex of anything I've ever seen. So just to get that out and really use these really awesome places as that conduit, and to have events and to have the conversation be over these months, this is another event and another thing, and get coverage and stuff. So to make it really concrete, as opposed to this like, oh, but it costs me an extra $30 a year. Like, I don't know. I spend more than that on public radio for the year. Just like, anyway, so that's my thought, and not like an official proposal, but perhaps something to think about at next meeting, or having kind of something where I know we can't really meet with like as a subcommittee that's not public, but maybe have one of our meetings be focused on coming up with logistics for a plan.
Yeah, I really like that idea of doing sort of a series of like almost like CPA tours or events, like, hey, like CPA invites you to come down to Mayor Field for hot dogs and burgers on X date.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let's do an event down at Lady Liberty. Let's do an event down at, I love that idea. That's great. Okay. Amy, do you want to speak on this item, or otherwise I'm going to move from this item on and move to your item next.
Just very quickly. Just wanted to mention that in the CPA peer networking meeting that I have every month, I can find out more about this later, that in Somerville, I think they created like a big poster that had some of the images of the projects, that are on the website. Like, what if that were somehow on display in City Hall? Just a thought. And also, I do, as you know, I need to leave by 6:15. So I don't know if things could be in a different order so that I could.
I got you, girl. So we're going to take the website update last, and we're going to move next to 5, which is review and approve standard contract terms for FY25. So, Amy, do you want to walk through some of the thoughts that you had about sort of adding some of the standard terms?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see if I can find the page I was just working on. Just a second here. I do have something to share.
My daughter just gave me an entire bag of caramel popcorn, and now it's just here at my desk. It's terrible. It's so good.
I know, as you know, Meg, you sent me a lot of emails on Friday that I didn't see until yesterday. And I do work more than one job, so I wasn't able to go through every single project with this, but I've been working on the Jones Point Phase 1 rehabilitation contract. So here what I've done, just so you can see, is I've just put all the historic projects first, so you can see, the awards that they were. And there's a section for restrictions, deadlines, terms, and then I've highlighted, and then below I've added Holyoke Merry-Go-Round, because that's the one private historic project, and the Jones Point Parks open space, and then the housing. So yeah, so just let's see, one of the changes, is that I wanted to clarify under the disbursement section, because mostly it's been fine, especially because I created a disbursement form, because if I don't have that form, I get a lot of back and forth constantly, because there's 20 projects that are ongoing all at once. So it's very confusing with someone just randomly sending me an invoice, but not giving me any framework for that request. Like, is this already an existing purchase order? Is this a new quote? Whatever. So I've created a form, but so most people have been fine with that, but, I won't name names, but, there's been a person who doesn't want to do that. And it's, I just thought it would be clear, and that's caused some problems. I thought it would be clear to put here completion of disbursement form provided by the CPC Administrator, which will include documentation of work completed, details on the request, status of the project, and the submission of the invoice. Thorough clarification of any requests for payments as determined by the CPC Administrator, that's me, upon review of the submission. If the CPC Administrator requests additional information beyond these aforementioned items, compliance with these requests is required for payment. It just seems like a no-brainer that I'm surprised that I've run into, someone who's combative with just providing answers to my questions. So I just, they said, well, I'm going by the contract. So I'd like to, okay, maybe we just need to spell it out more in the contract. So that's a big change, or not a big change, but a small change that I'd like to have. And then the scope of work, we were dealing with Jones Point, the new project. I discussed this with Meg back and forth through the Google sheets looking at the contract. Sometimes the scope of work ends up being a little bit confining, and yet you still are the person managing the project wants to do is still in the spirit of what the funds are for, but you don't want to have to go back to city council and do all this. So that we did make it clear, like I made it clear in the city council orders that if there's a minor change in the scope of work in keeping with the spirit and intent of the project, the recipient may request, and the Holyoke CPC may, in its sole discretion, approve such changes the committee considers appropriate for good cause shown. So that's very similar to the extension thing that, as you can see over here under extensions.
It's important for something like the merry-go-round project, where they came back to us and were like, can we use this for stirrups? And we had to go back to the city council, right? Because it had said very specifically that it was for 4 of these horses, right? So it sort of allows us to, in the spirit of the project that they're trying to complete, accept small changes to the scope of work that we think is appropriate for good cause shown and in alignment with the goals of the project. Michael?
Madam Chairman, do you want us to vote this evening on those 2 changes?
Yeah, this one, and also Amy, do you want to add anything about, this was 3 or 4 months ago, but you had said that you were hoping to add something like the last 10% couldn't be released until they had given you the final report?
Oh,
Also
yeah, that might be a good
standard
idea.
term?
I mean, for example, not just to do with that, but I did notice just now with the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round, they're getting this new award that their contract actually said that they were supposed to do a restriction. And there's been nothing on that restriction that they were supposed to cover. So, yeah, I do feel like there should be some leverage because I find a lot of times, you know, there's never a sign completed or there's never something done. And I think that, yeah, if there was some kind of leverage like that, although sometimes it can be hard to know what that 10% is if they're not using the full amount that was awarded. So I'm not really sure what the best way to go about that.
Well, it'd be the full amount of whatever was initially, with the 10% would be if we gave you $10,000 and you spent 8 of it, 10% of the $10,000 is what we go on. That'll get the
Right.
retention.
Sometimes they don't use up the whole award.
I
So how
understand
do I
that.
predict what that 10% will be?
Well, use the funding, use the amount that we originally gave you.
Yeah, I think the only way to standardize it is to what Michael says.
Uh-huh. So, but what if they're, okay, but if they're way underfunded, then it won't harm them at all then. If, I mean, if they don't even use the full 10,000, if they don't even need the last 10%, it won't matter. So that's my point.
No, and you're right, Amy, no one's disagreeing. I think that the point is just that if we can't say 10%, then what would you like us to do? Are you offering a different option?
I don't know. I'm just not really sure. I'm not sure what. I guess that is a good idea, unless anybody has another idea. I'm not an expert on that.
Madam
Okay,
Chair,
I see Helene's arm up. Hold on a second. Yeah, Helene.
I was going to say that I'm just thinking. I think these are really good and very like efficient changes also that are again trying to be more efficient. So this is a little different than the 10% and and everything, but maybe not quite as good leverage. But that if you don't get that back, then that means CPA won't consider another application for money in the future, until you get it back. And it's just in terms of like, I don't want to create more work for you too, as you're like trying to figure out the 10% and what is this?
Yeah.
But that if it's like, okay, like you're going to do you, but don't come back to us because you didn't fulfill this end part of the contract. And we just won't even consider. And that might, prompt some, organizations or whatever to be compliant. Others that are here for just one amount and aren't ever coming back, I guess that's less leverage. The other thing is, if they don't spend all their money, don't they need to give? Like, you wouldn't release it, right? Like if it's 10,000 and they've only spent 8 and that's all they're going to need, we just keep the 2. Or would there be an instance where they have to give money back that they didn't spend?
We only disperse by invoice, and so anything that they don't expend has stayed in the reserve fund forever.
Yeah. So I don't know if you think, Amy, that would be at all effective, but I feel like one thing about it is just it doesn't create more work for you in terms of trying to figure that out.
It makes a lot of sense. That's the kind of thing I can't imagine how that would work in terms of the written contract. But if that's just made clear somehow when you're evaluating, like if we get a future application from someone who didn't fulfill their terms, that does make a lot of sense. I'm not, to say.
I think the contract could say you have an obligation as this contract to do this final report, and failure to complete the final report means a CPA will not consider future projects until that is done.
And we should have the sign too.
So not just final, wouldn't it be all terms, like failure to complete the terms of this contract will, I'm just typing as we think this out loud.
I think that's fair.
How did you phrase it, Helene? Failure to complete the terms of the contract will
prevent the organization or project from being considered by CPA for future funding. We just want to consider
or future phases maybe of the project. Is that what you?
Yeah,
of
future
the project,
right,
or considered,
or future funding for an organization. Like if an organization came for one thing and now they're coming for something completely different, I still think they should be held where they have to finish the contract. And that's part of our good government focus here.
In subsequent
Mhm.
funding, something like that.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah, because one of the things we haven't done that the contract clearly states is that they're supposed to return their funds if they don't complete the terms. And, sometimes we've never gotten a sign put up, which they signed, but I don't know how it even worked to demand that they give back that money. That's not something we've ever tried to do. So this sounds like a good idea to me. Failure to complete the terms of the contract will prevent future funding for the organization and subsequent CPA funding rounds.
And this would replace the idea of retaining the 10%.
Oh, so does this mean you don't want to do that? Retain
No,
the
so then
last
we would
10%?
remove that.
No,
Well, I thought you could do both.
why not do both?
All right. Yeah. Well, again, it's just, this is your process, Amy. So it's more about, does that help you or does it hurt you? Is it hard for you to track? Well, is this the last 10% now? Is it not? Like, is that too much? If that's the
I
case,
mean, I could just go
that's
through,
the-
look at the award for every project and put down what that 10% is, and maybe I could let them know up front. I mean, it'll be in the contract, right? And make sure that they all see that, so they're aware.
Sounds good.
And
And
yeah,
I think that's
I guess if they're underspent, it won't really have any leverage, but the second thing would have some weight. So I think both of them are doable. Yeah.
Good idea.
So I'll
But
make
when we say retain the last 10%, it's not just if they don't do the final report, isn't it? That they need to meet all the terms.
Yes,
like
that's.
they have to have
part of
the
contract.
sign, they have to have all of that. Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
Sign, like if there's a restriction.
But it's all
See,
terms. I think it's very clear if we say all terms, because then
Okay.
disbursement, restrictions, signs, final report, everything is in the contract.
I guess it will be a little tricky for me because I'll have to keep track of whether they've done every single thing. Like I didn't realize that the Holyoke merry-go-round was supposed to do a restriction.
They're not supposed to do a restriction. And if that's in the contract, we have to amend it to remove it. That was such a long conversation.
Really? They're not? Okay.
No, because they're on state land that was given to them for the purpose of
Okay.
conservation.
Okay,
of
it
that
didn't seem
historic-
right, but I found it in their
historic-
contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was a
Thanks.
very long conversation several
Okay.
years ago when we
Okay.
first took them on
Okay.
about why it was state land, not city land, but still didn't
Okay.
require a restriction. It's because the way the land was deeded to them, they have to follow the Department of the Interior guidelines for historic preservation and rehabilitation for that memorial based on the way the land was deeded to them. So they're already under a restriction.
Okay. So maybe if they're already under a restriction, it doesn't have to be amended. I don't know.
I just want them, yeah, if it says there's supposed to be a restriction, there already is one. It's the state. We don't have to create that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So I would like to make a motion that we approve those 4 terms as standard contract terms for this round of the FY24 contracts.
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Oh, I have to do the roll call vote because we're on Zoom. All right. Michael Falsetti,
yes.
Jay Ferreira,
Yes.
Chris Gothier, Meg McGrath Smith. Yes. You're looking for like who was gonna say yes but me. It's been a long week, y'all.
Your daughter,
Okay.
your daughter will do it.
Maribel Ortiz,
Yes.
Colleen Busby.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the next piece is just a review, a job change title for Amy Landau. Amy has been described as the staffer, the administrator, the manager, the project manager. There's like 4 different titles floating around in like generations of documents, the website, the emails, the contracts. Like we have to pick a title and we have to make sure that that's the title that we're using because it's too confusing for things to be called different things in different places, even just legally. So, Amy, what is the term and then what is the process? Like just
and I just wanted to mention that the reason I thought this was something to address is because when I developed the contracts, I had to distinguish between my role and the role of the person managing the project. who's, often from the city too. So I called them the project manager, recipient, or project manager. So I couldn't call myself manager. So I said administrator. So since that's in so many contracts, it seems to make sense to do that for my title. And it's a very simple thing, just a form that you would fill out and that Meg would fill out and sign and give to personnel to get out from personnel.
Okay, so CPA administrator, any discussion, any questions? It's just a sort of a logistical piece.
Can we add superstar in that?
We should. It should be like
Thank you.
Superstar CPA administrator.
Superstar administrator.
It's a joke, but thank you for your work, Amy.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, Helene. Appreciate it.
Madam Chairman, do we vote on that, or is that just?
Yes.
passed?
No, I think we do need to vote on it, because then I have to have the permission to go and for the committee, go fill out that form. So do I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Oh, darn it. We have to do roll call vote. Okay, Michael Falsetti,
Yes.
Jay Ferreira,
Yes.
Chris Gothier, Meg McGrath-Smith, me, yes, Minimal Ortiz,
Yes.
Helene Busby.
Yes.
There's been too many late night meetings, guys. Okay, and then next, just any updates, Amy? Number 7, updates from CPAC.
Not too much. I could just briefly say that I've been started to work on the Jones Point project contract. So it's been back and forth on that because they need to do that soon. And also I got the formal city council signed orders from, the city clerk on the new FY24 projects. And I emailed the applicants with the good news. So they know that they're going to have to be back and forth with me on the terms of the contract. So that's pretty much the main thing right now.
Michael?
Madam Chairman, Amy, to your knowledge, how much is left? You may not know this, but can you tell me tell all of us the ballpark figure of how much is in administrative budget? How much money we have there currently?
Actually, I was looking at that recently. Let me see if I can find that. And
I know you said that in just like last year, we've underspent in the for the financial consultant.
let's see. The balance, I think for sorry, I don't want to give you the wrong information. So I think that I need to get back to you on that one. Okay.
If you could email that to all of us, that would be great. And Madam Chairman, I thought this gets back to the upcoming vote in November. I thought the state would not allow us to do anything political, that we couldn't spend any money at all to do it. It's an ineligible expense if we did anything in the political field, yay or nay, on any topic. That was explicitly, I thought I'd read that.
Well, this is the weird part of things that just are normal become political. So suddenly an event at a playground becomes political when you're just celebrating the playground, right? I think that the reality is there's no reason why we shouldn't be inviting the public down for our projects and celebrating with them. And if people want to call that political, I think that's shameful, right? Like we did the event at GovTech or the event at Miracle League. I think I have no shame in saying I think that the public should absolutely pass the ballot, not pass the ballot question and support CPA because we're doing good in the community. And I think we just want to celebrate with the community the good that we're doing. Like Jones Point Park is going to be done, right? Like these are things that we're going to have to celebrate and we should celebrate them. So I think we're just going to keep doing what we've always done.
I was referring to more or less if we were took it upon ourselves to stand outside the voting booths with signs. That's how I was kind of referring to. That would be, I think that would cross the line. I think the state had said in the original legislation that we were forbidden to do that.
Well, I'll reach out to the state. I'll reach out to the state and I'll reach out to the Secretary of State's office to ask. It's a good question, right? To what extent can members of the committee participate in political activity around the ballot question? That's a solid question. Yes,
but other people can. stand out with signs. And also, to me, if people want to come to an event that we're hosting and they bring some information and literature, that's a public space. So, I definitely made my proposal really thinking this is about highlighting, so the community knows what we do, and that this is a community resource, and that I don't think that's political, because it's informative. It's making sure that these projects and the taxpayer money is, well known, that you can go and you can hike in Holyoke, you can go to this playground, you can, and where the funding comes from. So, I'm sorry, Amy has her hand up, and I just
yeah, this is actually pretty important. Meg, I just noticed a message from Mary. I think she must be the phone number here, because she did say she was calling in, and she needs to be included in the vote for the minutes, and I guess the other vote.
You got it.
So maybe
Sorry.
I could, I'm assuming this is Mary 413. Yeah, right
Yeah.
over here. So.
Mary, is it possible to unmute? Because you can speak anytime.
Let me see I wonder if I can unmute her. Oh, I'll ask to unmute. Let's see if that works.
Yeah. It's different on the phone though. I think you have to call in and accept audio or something to participate. Sorry, Mary. Okay. Amy, any other quick updates before I know you have to go?
Oh yeah, I did want to answer Mike's question, because yeah, so the total amount for admin for FY24 was $70,988. And so that includes both, the operating expenses, supplies, and my salary. So we've used 47,492 has been expended, and there's still 23,590 and 78 cents left. I may have to update some of my salary, but that's roughly the amount that's left, to answer your question.
That's FY24, Amy, did you say?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll have to do the math. So when we get to June and we start June 30th, we close out, I will no longer be chair. You will have a new chair in July because I'm term limited. But I will still be here to support you. And we'll have to have a meeting, between the chair and Amy and Daniel, who's doing the financial consultant stuff for us, where they can actually make sure that all of those numbers are really specific, because we'll want to share those with the public as well, right? If it's cost, X amount of money in order to, do the admin budget, right? But now with the 1%, we won't be able to fully pay for the admin budget. That's something that we'll want to share with the public and with council. Okay. Amy, I know you have to go. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay.
All right. Jay Ferrer, I see your hand.
Yes, just back to the committee's, potential political involvement. I would just say that I think we really should tread lightly with that, and really have a deep conversation with Stuart, and just make sure that we're not crossing any lines, and make sure that we clearly understand where those lines are. I just wouldn't want to put the committee or the program in a negative light by pushing too hard, and I just I think certainly we always want to invite the public to participate in the programs that they've paid for. I think that that's certainly a normal function of the CPA, and I just think with a ballot question coming up, I think the state coalition is very good at communicating this type of stuff, and it would just be in our a good idea to just, like I said, tread lightly and just make sure that we're staying in bounds, and make sure that we all understand where those lines are as we approach the campaign. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jay. And I will say, so there's only been one other community that has lowered the surcharge, and it was actually it's not it's an apples and oranges argument or situation, because that community had a really large project they wanted to fund that was connected to their city hall or town hall. And so they actually put it on the ballot to raise it from 1.5 to 3% for 1 year, or for one cycle, right? And they, raised it to 3% for 2 years. They're able to pay for that project and then put it back on the ballot to lower it back to 1.5. So that's the only community that's done it. And they were sort of just being strategic about like, let's tell people we have this one project, we know it's very popular, we want to be able to fund it, but this is what we need in order to do it. Let's raise it for one budget cycle, collect way more money than we normally would be able to, take the state match for it, because you get invited into additional rounds of funding if you're at 3%. So it's not just that you're matched the same amount, you're matched at a higher rate. And then they lowered it to 1% or 1.5%. So the only one that's ever lowered it was lowering it back to what they had done initially. So there's no community that has chosen to lower it. So let's hope that we are once again another community that chooses not to do so. Okay. I want to go quickly back to the website piece. So I met with Jay last week. Thank you so much for, just being willing to get into like the Joomla world of the website. And we were able to go through how to build the website pages. And Jay has started to work on building out the FY24 page of all the projects. So I wanted to give Jay just a few minutes to sort of walk through what he's done so far. And thank you, Jay, for doing it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to help. What I did already is I entered all of the little, I call them blurbs about all of our projects, just little summaries of what we've done and what's coming down the pipe. I do still need to enter the information into Google Maps, but once I have that done, and I'll probably do that by the end of this weekend, we'll be able to, go live. I would think with the updated information from the website. So if anyone was interested, I'd love anybody's feedback on those. If anyone would want to contribute, I'd be very happy to, in a nice, convenient email, send that to you for any review. If anyone would like that, I personally would appreciate that. I think some of them could maybe use a little bit more attention or maybe a different perspective. I just think with the, with the campaign coming up, I think the public's going to want good information. And I think really, what's clear is that the committee's, one of our jobs is to provide information to the public. So I think this is a particularly important time for us to be open and clear and provide links and various bits of info that might be relevant to folks. And yeah, so that's it. I'm plugging along with it. It was like slightly intimidating at first, but I feel like I'm getting the hang of it. With the what is it called? Joomla.
Joomla.
Yeah. So
just like riding a bike, Jay.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Thank you for doing that. And I'm happy to look at anything that you wrote and help with anything that's like logisticy, like as you're figuring out how to use it. But I have no doubt it's going to be great. And thank you for your help. I really do appreciate it. Michael, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, one last, to get back to the note about finding out where the line is that Jay was referring to, that I'm referring to. That's a splendid idea that Jay and you all have come up with, to put it on Facebook or whatever those other sites are. But are we violating the intent of the state legislature by doing this? Are we in fact crossing the line because we're advocating, well, maybe not directly, but indirectly, a point of view? And I'd very much like, Madam Chairman, if you could find out from either the Attorney General's office or whoever, to say, well, what can we do? Well, what can't we do? I like to.
I'll turn that for you. Hello, this is Leon. No.
That's why I think it's very important to find out what we can do and what we can't do. So, Madam Chairman, it would be very helpful if you could do that for us.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a good point. And I think also it's like tricky because like we are the thing that's political now, because like it's become a political issue, but like we're just a function of government. Like we're created by legislation and by, the act of the voters, right? Like we're just trying to do us and serve the community through the things that we're asked to do in the legislation. So but I appreciate your point. I will reach out to Secretary of State and the AG's office and figure out like just what can't we do. Smart. We definitely should be proactive on it. I appreciate that. Okay. If nothing else, that was my thing. That's all I had on the agenda. And I have two under others. So we haven't heard back. Nathan Chung actually also resigned from the planning board. So I need to reach out to Nathan and be like, I love you, Nathan. I don't know what happened with Nathan. Yes, Christopher Gauthier.
I actually wanted to fill you in on that. Yes, Nathan is gone. Lauren Niles has actually taken his place.
Oh,
She was
okay.
to attend
That's
this
right.
evening,
voted
but she
last
did
night.
have an emergency at the
Oh,
house.
so she's been appointed by the planning board to hear.
Yes,
Oh, great.
yes.
Okay, that's good. Because I was gonna say I needed to know who the next person is. Okay,
Yep.
great.
Okay,
Perfect. Okay, great. And I'll reach out to Nathan just because I think he's great. Wanna make
yes.
sure. Okay, because suddenly he, kind of stepped away from us and then also from planning board. Not that he has not done his due diligence. I appreciate all the civic stuff that Nathan does. And then what else? The next meeting would be the second Wednesday, which is the 12th of June. Let me just look at that really quick. Yeah. Okay, so the 12th of June is our next meeting. And is 6 o'clock okay? We just moved it to 5:30 for this meeting because Amy had a rehearsal for a concert that she's in. So I wanted to make sure that we were doing it. And I have ordinance that starts in 7 minutes. It's gonna be
Okay.
good. Okay, if that's it, anyone else have any others? Okay,
Nope.
next time we'll make sure that we go over stuff I hear from Secretary of State in the AG's office. And we'll go over the Pulaski Park study because we finally on that project got the final report yesterday about whether or not the wall is stable. So we'll go over that at the next meeting, which will be my last meeting as chair.
Not necessarily.
Don't wish it upon me. I love you all, but like Jay's gonna be great. I think Jay says he's willing to step up as chair.
Oh, in
And
that case, yes.
I think it's gonna be great. So we also just, well, you'll have to have a vote in July, but just so you know, maybe we'll have a vote with the last agenda item in June. That's what we should do. For the new officer starting in July. That's why there's like a consistency of officers through, right? Look at that, people.
Okay.
Well, appreciate you. All right, I'll see you next time.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Yes.
Second.
Second? Okay. Bye, everyone.
See ya.